Good evening and welcome to this Wednesday edition of the Undercovers cast. I'm Ben along with Paul and Connor, my co hosts. We're into week 2 of OTAs. I hope everyone had a great Memorial Day and we're getting there. We're less than 100 days till kickoff from week 1 of the regular season between Baltimore and Kansas City. So we're getting there, guys.
We're almost
And we
there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
OTAs are almost wrapped up. Then we got mini camp, and then we got training camp. So everything's kind of coming, I guess, rather quickly, but it just means we're closer to football, which is good.
are we
Good
all
for
ready?
good for my
Are we all
intention
ready for
fans, at
football?
least.
Yeah, it would be good for yours indeed, Paul. I think we're all ready though for football season, just with the amount of hype that's around the Bills organization right now, with how the vibes feel like they're at an all-time high. If you watch any of the videos from OTAs, you just kind of see a new energy on the team, and
Absolutely.
that's a beautiful thing. That's a very beautiful thing. So, I believe we want to get into our first quick take of the evening. Ben, it was supposed to be yours. You know what? Yeah, this was your idea. You wanted to be the one to cause the controversy tonight, not me. So we're going to pose you the question, and I want you to answer it with a dignified response. How big of a surprise can the New England Patriots be in the AFC? I believe Ben's mic died.
Roll up the volume a bit.
Yeah, look at that's just hilarious. His mic knew that the take that was coming was so crazy that it was like, I'm not having any part of this. But
What about now?
yeah,
Can you hear me now?
Oh, there we go.
yep,
Ben's
yep,
back.
he's back. He's
Man, I
back.
don't know what happened there. I had a very steaming, piping hot take ready for you guys.
I
I
told
must
you,
have
Ben.
gotten ahead of myself, but uh, I mean, I'm not gonna say they'll be on the level of last year's Houston Texans, but I think they can almost be similar, maybe that 9-10 win range, depending on if Drake May starts and plays. But I mean, maybe they're even better. I mean, they still got a good defense and plenty of pieces on that defense, if we're being honest, between Christian Gonzalez coming back, and of course Judon. They got some other interesting pieces like Marte Mapu. They were able to resign Kyle Duggar, who I really wanted the Bills to get. Christian Barmore's good, and then they were obviously able to bring back Uche. So they got a good defense. It really is just up to a young, inexperienced offense, but the O line is pretty intact. So here, kind of where my line of thought was coming from this, because I'm not a believer in Miami anymore after that. I never really was to begin with, just to preface, but after that monumental collapse last year, I don't think our good friend McDaniels down there in Miami is going to be able to really right the ship. Um, so I I I'm thinking Miami might start might start to fall apart, and and I was watching a video earlier, and Aaron Rodgers looked like he had no mobility at all. So if he looks
Mhm.
more like 2020, what was it, 2022, I believe, Matt Ryan, than he does his old MVP self, then there's going to be problems for that Jets team. And I think that's
I'm
ripe for the
sure
picking
is it
for
going to
New
be already.
England, depending on how Drake May plays. Because if he's anywhere, let's say he's 80% of rookie CJ Stroud last year, they got some decent pieces with Jalen Polk, Kendrick Bourne. I'm not going to name the TikTok star, but I liked
Oh,
uh,
come on
Javon
now.
Baker as well.
You are seriously going to tell me that you don't believe in Drake May with wide receiver one, the GOAT, Juju Smith Schuster, Mr.
Oh,
TikTok legend himself?
I didn't want to
Come
mention
on.
that name. Oh,
Too
yikes!
bad. You're getting it mentioned because he is the GOAT. Don't you dare disrespect his name, Ben.
The goat of what?
TikTok, of course, and talking trash to a team that winds up beating you in the playoffs. The Browns is the Browns, he said. Well, what happened, Juju? What happened? Huh? What happened?
Yeah,
Very much
right.
so.
They'd make the playoffs. Juju would start talking, maybe make some TikToks on the midfield logos, and then there you go. They lose, and the world laughs at them.
That
But
would be hilarious if that actually happened. But
all
I
right,
mean,
I
looking at that roster, I mean, it's not entirely the same roster that made the playoffs with the rookie Mac Jones, but I think we could all agree that Drake May, at his worst, should still be better than whatever rookie Mac Jones was. Not at his worst,
Absolutely.
but I
re-
think it's reasonable to think that a rookie Drake May can play the level of rookie Mac Jones. I don't think that's a wild prediction, especially. I mean, the Patriots didn't even have great weapons back then, so they can potentially win 10 games playing what, a fourth place schedule.
yes,
So
okay. So here is the benchmark for what you just said. For Drake May in his rookie season to be on the level of rookie Mac Jones, he would have to post a passer rating of 92.5 with 3,801 yards, 22 touchdowns, and 13 interceptions in 17 games. Do you
that's actually pretty
genuinely?
decent numbers,
Yeah.
actually.
And don't forget, in his rookie
Okay,
year,
I
they
guess
went 10 and 7.
I'll say not statistics wise, but play wise, because you could say those numbers were a little deceiving if you actually watched Mac Jones and saw some of the stuff. Like, one of those games they won with him completing 2 passes. So I'm not trying to take anything away from Mac's rookie season, but you could still know there were limitations. They didn't fully trust Mac Jones to an extent. So I'm just saying, as far as level of play, I think Drake May can be just as good. I don't know if he'll put up a 92 passer rating, and only have 13 picks as a rookie, but I mean, I think you could say, as far as helping giving the Patriots a chance to win and making plays. I mean, he can make throws that Mac Jones can't make, and that's why they moved off Mac Jones to draft Drake May, because of that big arm. So, or at least bigger arm than Mac Jones, because we all know Mac Jones is a semi limited arm. At least with his deep ball. So I don't
Still a
think.
better arm than Tua.
Yep, which is funny, but
I
I
mean,
don't
the
think
NFL
it's.
didn't give the New England Patriots an easy first 7 games. I
Yeah,
mean,
they
Oh,
do
yeah,
have
no,
a
I was looking
very
at it.
difficult schedule, but I mean, here's the thing: schedules never look the same week 5 than they do in May in
sure.
the off season. So
Yeah,
things change, injuries happen. Teams that were all hyping up, and namely maybe teams like the Jets, could actually come crashing and falling down to harsh realities that they're really not great teams
yeah,
overall. So
True.
wow.
this was supposed to be a quick take. It ended up being a little bit of a longer take, but
Ben,
let's go.
Ben,
Let's get into your quick take, Connor.
listen, if they
Yeah,
go
let's get
10
into
and
Connor's
7,
quick take.
if they go 10 and 7 with this schedule as I'm looking at it, then this team will have
Mayo is
massively
coach of the year.
overachieved.
Yeah,
Yes, they will have
and Gerard
massively
Mayo
overachieved.
is coach of the year for sure.
Bengals, Jets twice, Dolphins twice, Bills twice, 49ers, Texans. I mean, this is a very
Yeah,
rough
it's a tough
schedule.
schedule.
It's rough. I mean, I don't see them winning any more than 5 games. So if they manage to do what you just said,
Right.
absolutely give Jared Mayo coach of the year and give Drake May rookie of the year. But anyway, yes, we should move on to the next take because this is a good one too. Read it off, Paul.
All right, so with the news just that dropped yesterday from Tom Pelissero about a new age of possibly of the off-season schedule, maybe getting rid of OTAs. And that means rookies don't get that time period of OTAs to really unite with and organize with their teams. So Connor, I'm going to propose this to you. Could the UFL soon be a farm league for the NFL if OTAs go away?
Uh, maybe. I still really believe it depends on the success that the UFL sees. I mean, I don't really know how long this league will stick around, and that's only because we've already seen what's happened to the XFL, the USFL, the AAF,
Mhm.
all of those other, you know, kind of feeder leagues, as they say, kind of like minor leagues almost for football. It's something that we need to wait and see how it plays out, but I definitely think there are players on um, UFL teams that could 100% play in the NFL. Guy that comes to
Oh,
mind,
100%.
guy that comes to mind is that kicker whose name I can't
Jake
remember right now.
Bates.
Yeah,
Yep, Jake Bates.
Yeah.
Bills make the call. Like
I think
somebody
there's
is going to make the
another
call.
there's another kicker too that I think is pretty good besides Bates, who's put up decent numbers, but just not to Bates level, just because Bates has been otherworldly. And to your point, Connor, I think you're gonna see more players kind of cross over. I mean, we already saw last year, Dallas's kicker, you know, came from the United, uh, the USFL, right? It was
Yeah,
last
He
year
was
before
actually
it became the
or was
UFL.
it the
because I know I know he had
USFL
an
or the
MLS
XFL?
background.
Oh,
Yes. No, but the
right. Yeah.
Cowboys kicker kicked in one of these leagues last year. I believe it was the USFL. So the Cowboys and their return specialist, I think Turpin too, like they found some decent gems here. I mean, the quarterback position, the level of quarterback play has kind of been down in some of those leagues, but I guess it really just depends if the right guy, like there are some decent quarterbacks now. Like I think Perez has been decent. I mean, I believe the Michigan quarterback has been playing pretty well this year. Um, but I think it really just depends on the player. But to Connor's point, the league's got to survive first.
I don't trust
It
it
definitely
anymore
does.
after what's happened to the rest of them. I mean, I don't see it. Maybe it survives, maybe it doesn't. But before you can fully get an answer, a detailed answer to that question, you have to see exactly where the future of the UFL goes. But
Right.
I mean, the NFL could if the NFL really wanted like a farm league, like, spring football and like, make it kind of like something for like these, rookies to go into just for a little bit, just for like an OTA
Sure.
type purpose, like, give them game reps. I think if that's what the NFL wants, they'll probably put some money into it. Like, we'll help this, carry
Maybe,
along.
but I mean, you also gotta think why wouldn't the NFL have done that already? But I guess it remains to be seen. They could still possibly do that. But let's get into our trivia question.
uh-oh,
Absolutely.
more
So
trivia
this
that I
was
won't know the answer to.
I honestly was thinking of this one because I think, you know, when I was going through it, because I was thinking, roster, main points was roster construction, Dalton Kincaid and Sam Laporta both had really good years. So this has the both of them are in this question. So Sam Laporta broke the record for most receptions by a tight end in NFL history. Well, Kincaid is fourth on that same list.
Rookie
Who
tight
are
end,
the
right?
Yes, rookie tight ends.
Yeah,
Who are the other 3 tight ends in NFL history that can complete the top 10 of most the top 5 of most receptions by a rookie tight end? I'll give you hints.
I'm
One of the
guessing
other 3 are active.
Wait, how
one
many
of
are
the
active?
three is active. Okay,
Wh
I think I
Yeah,
have an
so
idea who one is.
It's either
Kyle Pitts.
yes, that's one.
okay, so
Okay.
you were right on Kyle Pitts.
All right, and I think one of them is probably someone from like the '80s, right?
Yep.
80s, 90s, what era are we talking here?
Oh, okay. So it's either probably gonna be the guy that the tight end award is named after, right? Mackey, or it could be Dicka. Is it Mike Dicka?
No, he has the most receiving yards, but not the most receptions.
Yeah, there's a
Okay,
name I never thought I'd
gotcha.
hear again.
Yeah, I know Dicka was up there for yards. Was it Mackey?
Nope.
Not Mackey. What about Kellen Winslow?
Nope.
No. What?
I'll give you the 2 teams they played for.
Okay.
Giants and Eagles.
Jeremy Shockey?
Yep, that's one.
Okay, yeah. Okay, yep.
Just gonna let Ben cook.
Um,
He seems like he's got a good idea.
what would it be Ertz or no?
Nope. This guy played in the 80s.
Selleck? No, 80s. I don't know 80s. Who?
Alright, the one that you're missing is Keith Jackson.
Okay, gotcha. Interesting. So are we gonna now? I guess we transition to our
Yep.
favorite part of the show, right? Our
Yep.
Bills talk.
Yeah, Bills takes. Let's bring it. All right, so let's lead this off. And I actually was talking on Twitter about this the other day, so I'm going to take the start on this first topic. So the first topic that Paul has written down is the what everybody believes is the biggest area of concern on the Bills roster as it stands right now. If you want my opinion, it's edge rush. There is not enough depth at the position. There's just not enough. You got to think too. We just really don't have the depth behind everybody on the defensive line. I want to hear what y'all's takes are. I'm just
Okay.
making mine as brief as possible. I just
Sure.
don't think there's enough
Yeah.
depth on the defensive line to really be comfortable with how
So when you speak
we
of defensive line, you mean more edge, or like
yeah,
are you going to
more
include D
edge.
tackle in that too?
No, more specifically at the edge rusher position.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to
Think about it.
disagree because lem- I actually someone asked a similar question, and I believe my number one answer myself was, or edge was in there, but I had the receiver room as a whole as one, but I know everyone is kind of talked about that at nauseum the last couple of weeks, so I'll skip that. I did mention safety, just you know the starters kind of really need to clear themselves, I guess, from the backups. Like I think the depth has potential, especially with the D Delaney pickup. I
Yeah.
trust Mike Edwards to be a good contributor, and all reports from camp are that Damar Hamlin, or OTA, sorry, is that Damar Hamlin has looked outstanding. Like
Mhm.
he's been one of the best players. So if he can get back to his 2022 self, that even leaves me to believe like he could potentially take some snaps from even Tyler Rapp. Just because I think Rapp should be the third safety at best, but I think Bishop is going to play, contend for time. Obviously, there's no number one clear cut starter, so I guess you'll see how that competition works out. But I do like the depth at the position overall. I just kind of question which two guys start and how they're going to perform, especially losing two keys to your defense for how long in Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer, two of the best,
Eh.
one of the best safety tandems in NFL history, honestly.
Yeah.
Um, so outside of that, I'll list corner depth, which I know
Mhm.
Connor probably agrees with, just because
Yeah,
outside of
for sure.
Douglas and Benford, who both have injury concerns themselves, even Johnson has gotten banged up here and there. But outside of Douglas and Benford, our third corner is Kyer Elam, who's been in the doghouse at times. I know Connor does not like Elam, but I'm an Elam fan personally, and I think he's gonna take a step forward, especially with the defensive backs coach who finally believes
Mhm.
in him. So I it's not that I don't believe in Elam. It's just if Elam comes in and one of those guys go down, who's after Elam? It's Jamarcus
Mhm.
Ingram, who
Yep.
doesn't have a ton of experience. Cam Lewis is smaller. Daquan Hardy's a slot guy. And so both of those guys are more replacements for Teron Johnson. But if you lose any of the top three, you're looking at maybe top three outside corners. You're looking at maybe Kyer Elam, or not Kyrie Elam. You're looking at maybe Jamarcus Ingram playing valuable snaps, which he's a question mark right now. So, and I guess we'll get into this later, but there are some interesting pieces to look at that you could potentially look at for this corner room. I'd
Yeah.
like to
Right.
hear your answer, Paul.
Yes,
Yeah,
I would
I
too.
honestly was going to say safety. I think
Safety.
the wide receiver room, we all know about the concerns that we can have at the receiver room. You know, the offensive line, I think will play itself out and still be a
Oh, I
top
think
end
the O
productive
line is going to
offensive
be a
line.
strength. Like
It's
this O
going to be a
line
strength.
is going to be good. Like I know there's some
Wait a minute.
concerns with Lyle Collins, but even
Well,
if Lyle Collins doesn't make the team, he's still got some solid depth. I mean, I like the Grable pick, and I think Travis Clayton could be a future stud.
Yes. Now I
The
am
Bills
going to
currently on
hold.
the roster, you could really say they have two full-time two full-time starters. Rapp, who's been a starter since he's entered the league
Sure.
with LA. And then you get Cole Bishop, who started all 3 years at at Utah. Mike Edwards only had one season where he played above 60% of the snaps, and that was his last year in Tampa before he went to the Chiefs. So it's interesting. It's the safety room is built like it's built around depth pieces, and I really
Sure.
feel like Cole Bishop, even though McDermott doesn't like to start rookies on day one, I think
I don't
Cole
think he
Bishop
starts day
could.
one. I think
I don't
he
think he starts
starts
day
by
one, but I really
the end
think
of
that
the
he can
season.
start week 3.
Let's keep it with the corner room. Our next topic is, can Christian Benford be the number one corner? And I don't see any reason why not. He's already proven, even in his rookie year, at times, essentially. I mean, he's guarded and locked down Tyreek Hill on multiple occasions. I mean, he had a big interception in Miami last season. I mean, the interception against Dallas. I'm a big Christian Benford believer myself.
Mhm. Very
Um,
underrated player.
I'm he's one of my favorite players on the team, honestly. So I don't even really need to really go much into this other than if you just look at the advanced analytics and his grades in PFF, he was graded as a top 10 corner. I mean, we actually have 2 top 10 corners, 3, I think, top 12, including Teron Johnson. So I think
Big dubs.
between Douglas and Benford, either of those guys can really be corner ones, in my opinion.
Hmm. Agreed. What was I about I was actually about to make a mention of something, but no, you're absolutely right. Christian Benford, I actually believe, is one of this team's most underrated players. And that's even including Terrell Bernard, who, like, apparently nobody outside of Bills fans know who that is. And that's, I think, the best part about this team as a whole is that there's just a bunch of people that your average casual fan does not know that's going to be absolutely unbelievable this coming season. And Christian Benford definitely can be one of them. But you know what? You actually just made me think. I want to kind of circle back to the last topic because we were talking about corner depth, safety depth, and edge rush depth. You know what I actually would really love to see? I know that I've never been very high on Kyer Elam, but if there was like, if something did happen, right, and Kyer Elam had to play, I would love it, with a new defensive backs coach that believes in him. I would love to see a resurgent Kyer Elam. Could you imagine just how crazy Orchard Park would go if we were playing a playoff game at home and Kyer Elam snags an interception off of Patrick Mahomes to get the Bills to the AFC Championship game, or even better, the Super Bowl? Like,
I mean,
do
we've
you
seen him made big
see
plays
the
in the
vision?
playoffs already.
Yep,
Mhm.
yep. Like,
He,
I would love it if Kyer Elam might be kind of a guy that, maybe isn't the best regular season performer, but knows how to play when it comes time for the playoffs, which that's where a D Delaney really shines too. From watching him in Tampa Bay, I mean, that guy knows how to play when the lights are on, and that's what you want out of your best players, is to be able to play when the lights are on and it's go time. But um, let's
Talk
move on
about
to
Christian
the
Benford really quick.
next. Oh, you
You
want
know,
to talk about Christian
yeah,
Benford before
let me
Paul?
chime in really quick because
All right, chime in.
that last year we had forever we had the duo of Poyer and Hyde, and I think we're going to start a new quarterback cornerback duo in Benford and Douglas because both could be your CB1, and then the other one just easily falls into the CB2. And
Mhm.
Christian Benford, who started 14 games for the Bills last year, he only allowed 3 touchdowns against, and he had 0 missed tackles in 2023. I mean, he's
wow.
just shut down, locked down, and this is a late round pick that's out of Villanova, and just you look at his stats at Villanova, he's basically replicating what he did at Villanova into the NFL, and it's just perfect right now for the Bills and their secondary as they continue to go forward.
One
Absolutely.
more note on the corners. I know you brought up Douglas. The thing with Douglas is him being on the other side of 30 and only having a 1-year deal. I think that even speaks to higher importance to Elam developing into potentially being Douglas's replacement on the roster next year if the team chooses to move on from Douglas just because of age, you know, purposes and whatnot. So I think, it's going to be important for Elam to show some valuable snaps this year to, prove to Bean and McDermott that he can be a solution at corner 2 next year.
Hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. So let's move on to the next topic that we had planned. I know we are, this is one that I kind of want to take on because this is stuff that I've seen throughout my years as a fan of the game of football through many a different team perspective. How good could Joe Brady's offense be in his first full year as offensive coordinator? So I'm gonna take the I'm gonna take this one because I've seen this go both ways, right? So everybody's like, "Oh yeah, the hype is real because Joe Brady is introducing something new to the organization, a new system that Josh Allen can hopefully succeed in." And they showed flashes of excellence last year when he took over from Ken Dorsey. And that was with Stephon Diggs being useless for a majority of the games. So now that he has a full year to kind of meld the offense how he wants, you could have this go two ways. And I've seen both of these scenarios happen. So you could have it where this offense just takes off, like absolutely is even better than anybody ever thought possible because Joe Brady knows exactly how to use the key players in the offense more than Ken Dorsey did. Like, Dalton Kincaid for one. Um, I think getting a heavy usage of Dalton Kincaid is absolutely critical to this team's success. Um, you know, put Keon Coleman in his proper spot as a wide receiver, not like we did at FSU, and give Khalil Shakir the friggin' ball. I mean, Khalil Shakir showed last year that he can be him. And I really think that the more big names we have that nobody really knows about quite yet, as I mentioned earlier, this team's offense could just take off and be absolutely unbelievable. And then on the other side of it, which I've seen more often than not, the new offense doesn't gel because the new ideas don't necessarily fit the previous regime's scheming fits for their players. One example that I can actually kind of bring to the table here was when Randy Fichtner in Pittsburgh was replaced by Matt Canada. Everybody was like, "Oh, the offense cannot get any worse than where it was under Randy Fichtner," and it got worse. Absolutely got worse, as to the point where obviously the Steelers made the first ever midseason firing of a coordinator in Matt Canada, and they replaced him with someone that's arguably worse than Arthur Smith. Don't ask me why they did it. I'll never know. But even from them when they went from the heyday of Bruce Arians to, oh man, the my mind just blanked on their offensive coordinator. Oh yeah, they had Todd Haley for a few years. Todd Haley was really good, but he had a lot of star power on that team. So I'm just making sure that everybody watching in Bills Mafia has the perspective necessary. We want to be hopeful for Joe Brady. We want to be hopeful that this offense is going to be this elite production unit with pieces that nobody really knows about. But you have to give an offense time to gel, especially with a whole new system and a whole lot of new pieces. Keon Coleman in the wide receiver room, Marquez Valdez Scantling, which, by the way, I did not like the signing at all. Man has no hands, but at the end of the day, I think that there is potential for the Bills offense to be absolutely incredible, far more incredible than people are giving it credit for at the moment. I mean, obviously, we don't have the high flying star power of like the Miami Dolphins, for instance, or the San Francisco 49ers, or, teams like that, or even the Minnesota Vikings with Justin Jefferson. But at the end of the day, this offense is still going to be incredible because it's going to be run through a dispersion of the ball. It's not just get the ball to Stephon Diggs because he's getting mad on the sideline type deal. So I'm excited to see where this goes. And I would like to know what everybody else is thinking before we move on.
All right, can you hear me?
Yeah, we
Yes.
can hear you now. I know
Okay,
you were trying to
now.
speak it while
All
Connor
right.
was going.
Maybe it wasn't. My mic was muted by mistake. Anyways, well, here's a caveat to that. I agree with those points. The thing is about switching coordinators, where the reason there could be issues are when there are pieces that when you try to basically put a peg into a round hole or vice versa, whatever the saying goes, and you kind of saw
Square
that
peg in a
as the
round
season
hole.
progressed. Thank you, square peg in a round hole. You saw that as the season progressed, some of the pieces didn't really fit how Joe Brady liked to call the offense, and that's why you saw the usage of some players.
Mhm.
Stephon Diggs go down, and his
Shouldn't have said
efficiency
that name.
dramatically dropped.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
on the flip side, you mentioned there are a lot of new pieces and the construction of the roster, but I believe that is a direct correlation to the Joe Brady effect because those are pieces. Yes, they may not be the star power that some of the opposing teams in the NFL have, but they're pieces that Joe Brady has found and directly identified to help improve the offense. I mean, if you just look at the Joe Brady effect before uh, Brady got to LSU, Justin Jefferson had 875 receiving yards. With Brady, he went up to 1540 receiving yards, and Jamar Chase, it was even a bigger jump. Jamar
Mhm.
Chase went from 313 receiving yards to the next year with Brady having 1,780 receiving yards. And Brady was very important. I'm not saying he's the sole reason, and it's
Mhm.
all Brady as far as why these receivers took a leap, but he was important in finding the pieces and utilizing them correctly in his offense. And you see some players with similar type skill sets to what he's had and to what a successful Sean Payton offense has had. And if you look at the good Sean Payton offenses, which is Joe Brady is one of the Sean Payton acolytes, as we all know, one of their top
Mhm.
weapons has always been a bigger bodied wide receiver who is a matchup nightmare and who you know, both offenses have kind of used to move around and present matchup nightmares and are good in the red zone. And Peyton obviously had both Marcus Colston, who obviously was on that Super Bowl team, and then Michael Thomas, who was later, at one point a top receiver in the NFL before his foot just decided to give him issue after issue. But
Mhm.
I guess I'll land my plane here. I mean, I think the offense can be as good as it was to end the season last year, maybe even better, because this is going to be a full offseason for Brady. He's not just picking up the pieces and trying to fix what was broken in the Ken Dorsey system. He now has a full year to implement new and fresh ideas and basically start from zero and add new players who are bought into his system. And you can just
Mhm.
tell, listen to the players when they talk about Joe Brady or when you ask them about, in the interviews or press conference, when they're asked about Joe Brady, you can just hear how the players talk about Joe Brady. And
Mhm.
obviously, he has to make the right calls, but the connection is there between the players and the coach, which I think is
Wait.
crucial.
Wait a minute. I'm going to stop you for 2 seconds, Ben, because this is actually something that I am not sure about, that I'm sure one of you two probably knows more than I do. Is Joe Brady actually going to call offensive plays? McDermott's not going to have any input on how the offense is run during game day?
This is Joe Brady's offense. This
It's
is
Good.
yeah, it's no.
Good.
Well, actually, as Joe Brady said, this is Josh Allen's offense. So the show
right. It's
Yes.
Josh Allen's
runs through
offense.
Josh Allen,
Mhm.
and everyone's gonna eat, which is obviously different than
Mhm.
how the Bills' offenses have looked in the past. But I'm
Ooh,
here for it. I like to hear your input on it, Paul.
you know what?
The idea
I do
of
have a
saying this is Josh Allen's offense kind of reminds me of
I just had a really hot take.
back in the day with Jim Kelly when he used to call his own plays. I want to know
Sure.
if
Ooh,
that's what they're going to allow
actually,
Josh Allen to do a little
ooh,
bit.
actually,
You
Oh,
you know
know,
no
what?
maybe
huddle.
the no huddle
I would
offense
like,
and
Yeah.
just Josh
yeah,
Allen just
I would
firing
love
through
to see
plays.
some no huddle.
You know what would actually be really great? You bring up, Paul, the quarterback calling his own plays. That also really reminds me of Ben Roethlisberger in the last
Mhm.
few years under the last one under Randy Fichtner and then the first one under Matt Canada. You could actually see a notable change in how the offense worked, and notably how the offense went forward during times late in the fourth quarter, and we all knew that that was Ben calling his own plays. I think the idea behind Josh Allen maybe calling his own plays would be fairly interesting to see just what kind of changes he would make and things he would do, when they needed to be done. Because there's a lot of times on the football field when you want to get a play going, you see something in the defense, and that's when you change it up very quickly. For example, I don't remember which game it was that the Dolphins won last year, but they had a play. I think it was the Commanders game. They had a play where they had an idea that was given by Coach McDaniel. Tua pulled Tyreek over to the side and said, "We're doing it this way instead." They did it the way Tua wanted, and it was a touchdown. So things like that can happen. And if Josh Allen decides he's going to start doing stuff like that, that's huge for the team because that just means that Josh Allen has developed into more of a leader, which we already know he is. But
Mhm.
that kind of thing is just so powerful to have in a locker room, cohesion and leadership. And Josh Allen gives that for sure, which is one of the best reasons why getting this team younger is such a huge advantage. Josh Allen's leadership can guide most of this team. Cool. But
Absolutely.
that was my last bit on that take. I did
This
think of a pretty spicy hot take that I want to give toward the end of the show, but I do
All
want
right,
to
we'll
move on
save
to
your
the
hot take for the end of the show, and that's how we're going
yes,
to conclude.
yes,
There we
yes. This is
go.
a very, very hot take, but I want to move on to the next Bills topic because I haven't really had the time to sit down and think about this much. I've been too involved in the racing hemispheres with the Indy 500 last week, and the controversy. But this new kickoff rule coming into the NFL, um, do we believe that it will be of more benefit or harm to the Buffalo Bills as they continue to evaluate the roster? Paul, you go first this time. Ben talks too much.
I think that this would be a benefit to the Bills roster. If you look at the Bills last season, I mean, their special teams from returning to simply kicking a ball to the goalpost. It was just horrible. Like even a fake punt on fourth down in your own territory in a big divisional game. That's when you decide you call a fake punt. I mean, it's going to benefit because if you have a speedy guy back there, which I think the Bills can add, or even they have on the roster, that just flips the field. And we know football is a field possession game. You get good field position with Josh Allen with the weapons he has and the ability to turn a short field into big numbers. I mean, it's going to benefit the Bills offense more than just hurt the Bills offense. I mean, explosive plays, getting a free 6 points because you break a sprint down the middle, you break a tackle, and off you go, and you're into the open field. So it makes the kickoff a little bit more stressful, but it brings more fun to the game, and I think will benefit the Bills throughout the season.
Hmm. Yeah, well, that's a good one. Ben, what are your thoughts? Because I know you got some. You're just sitting there. You look like you want to speak. Speak. Give us your thoughts.
I mean, I agree with Paul. I mean, I think it can be good, in helping the Bills flip the field and start
Hmm.
with with better field position, and I think it will be interesting to see um who they choose to be their primary kick returner with, obviously no Hines or Hardy. But I know Ty Johnson did spend a lot of time, I think, doing kick returns last year, and he did do that in college. And we did draft Davis, so it's possible, with the Davis pick, um, Johnson sees more time returning kicks, but I think it will benefit the Bills overall. You also got maybe Hamler, who they could use in that role, is just another variable. But let's hear your thoughts on this, Connor.
Oh boy. Um, like I said, really, I don't have too many concrete thoughts on the new rules simply because I haven't really had the time to look into them all that
Mhm.
much. Whenever I give takes on things, I like to be as detailed as possible. You guys know that. I like to have all of the information. So I'll have to look at it a little more to figure out exactly what a good opinion of this would be. But I have a pretty good idea that the way that they're changing things up might result in a lot more returns. And I
Mhm.
think that's kind of what the NFL was hoping for.
For sure.
And um, if
In a
that's the
way, that
case,
kind of
then
hurt the Bills because they were they
mhm,
were they were horrible at covering kicks
that's what I was
and
thinking
punts
about.
last season. I mean, right
Well,
off
we
the
did
get-go,
sign
and
Matt Collins, who's a good
we did.
special teamer.
Yeah, and I have a feeling that's going to be a majority of Matt Collins' time on the field. But at the end of the day, makes me kind of sad that we did not sign Braxton Berrios because that's a player who I think is going to
No,
be very,
no,
very, very
no.
good
We
if
got
this
KJ
new.
Hamler, who's better than Barrios.
Hey,
Come on now.
do not diss Braxton Berrios when it comes to
I will
special
diss
teams.
Braxton Barrios. He
Okay.
sucks.
He
Wanna get
does
a little
not.
crazy?
Maybe he does not suck at he does not suck at special teams. He might not be the best wide receiver, like, in terms of how you
All
traditionally
right, he
view it,
might be
but
like
as a
passable,
special
but
teamer, he's really good.
yeah, but I mean the Bills got the Bills. It's not like they have worse than Barrios on the roster. They got
Mhm.
guys with
True.
speed and guys who are good.
Oh, yeah.
Let's continue our discussion. And this is really the juiciest part of our conversation tonight, and kind of, again, it ties into one of our earlier topics. I said, when we're talking about holes on the Bills roster, obviously with the it's almost $11 million. I think it's like 10 point something million they're getting in cap relief. Uh, June on June 1st from Trey White. Post June 1st designation. So with that money, you could realistically, I mean, you could add an edge, Connor. I mean, I don't really know the edges off the top of my head. I know Ngakwe is available, possibly Van Noy too, if he doesn't have a team. But I mean, there are some
Right.
options at edge. Um, but a couple guys I were eyeing now with Valdez Scantling signed, I think that kind of checks a box. I know some people are hinting at a possible big time wide receiver acquisition, but to me, I really don't see that many open wide receiver spots. I mean, obviously you can still add talent, but I think they have five solid wide receivers now, and if you trade for someone, you're only going to take snaps from Shakir, Coleman, or Samuel,
Mhm.
who you paid money to, and you want.
Yep.
I mean, you want Shakir to develop more, and
Yep.
Kids obviously are going to get his targets. So I just don't really see a need to add another receiver. I wanted someone fast. We got MVS. I know you're not a fan, Connor, but he has zero drops in the playoffs in his career. So when the games
Yeah.
matter, he comes up and makes big plays. He's a speedy, fast, big receiver who's played with Rodgers, Mahomes, and now Allen. So three Hall of Fame quarterbacks. We'll see how he looks with Josh Allen, but he adds a
Mhm.
different dynamic to the offense. But I was talking on corners earlier, and since I've been rambling a lot tonight, I'll wrap up kind of quickly on this point. But with that $10 million, one player I would be interested in bringing in is Adoree Jackson, who is
Okay, yep.
playing in both man and zone, but I think he's a solid
Yeah.
corner who, if something happens to your starters, can provide good, valuable depth.
Wait, you know what? You just made me think of something else, Ben, about free agent corners that we could sign for
Xavier Howard,
depth. And I
no,
was about to
no,
say,
no.
yeah, imagine the
We
imagine the Bills signing Xavier Howard. Like, I'm not talking about signing him right now. I mean, say you're coming down to the wire, it's the playoffs, and you have an injury at the cornerback position,
uh,
and you're like, well, we can't necessarily acquire we can't acquire Adoree Jackson because somebody else already did. Other options on the board, at least for the moment, include Stephon Gilmore, Steven Nelson, and Patrick Peterson. Patrick Peterson obviously had a pretty good season last year with Pittsburgh, but I don't know. I feel like there's going to be a lot of these players that aren't available come crunch time. At the end of the day, if they had to take Xavier Howard for depth, I am not going to hate it very much, but I'll hate it a little bit. But
I
yeah,
mean,
that's all I'm going to say on
I
that
might.
is
Yeah, it's not the worst option, but I did some concerns with his injury history. But I,
well,
I almost even like Gilmore more, to be honest with you.
let's be completely real. There is any of these options are better than Eli Apple.
Oh, don't even mention. I didn't want to mention him. I didn't for a reason. But
Too late.
any edge rushers, real quickly before we move on to Paul.
Actually, yes, I did look up the best remaining edge rusher free agents
I know
at the
Ngakwe's a
moment.
free agent.
Yes,
He
he
is.
is. There's a few notable names other than
Okay.
Ngakwe. Carl Lawson is still a free agent, which I think is
He is
fairly interesting.
another with injury concerns. I would
Yeah.
pass. I would pass on guys who have had multiple, injuries like that. I would definitely. I just personally, I would try to get guys who are more healthy. So someone like Ngakwe who's played
Mhm.
consistently. But go ahead, keep going.
Yeah, I think here's a really interesting one that's going to get your guys' attention that is still a free agent as an edge rusher, and that is Emmanuel Ogba.
Mhm.
I would not
Mm,
be opposed to that either because,
maybe, maybe
to
it's
be
like a
fair,
deep camp signing if
yeah,
Von
hmm
is looking a little shaky. Maybe. I mean, that is a little more interesting.
for sure.
Safeties. I think with the Delaney again, safety and wide receiver were kind of ones I penciled originally in, but with the Delaney and MVS additions, I think both those rooms are kind of full. And one
hmm
thing I am a little excited about, I know, like Paul mentioned, they're kind of more like rotational players, safeties and receivers. But to me, I feel like cream rises to the top, so you get a lot of good
hmm
players, and I feel like let the best man win. And you'll find, I think, out of the six, including the safeties and receivers, two or you'll get one or two who are really, really good and a couple solid
hmm
contributors. I think that's good for you. So I
hmm
think safety and receiver, even though you could add, I don't even know who's left at receiver at this point after the Bills
Ooh, hang
took
on,
MVS off the board.
hang on.
But as far as in the safety department, obviously you could add an Eddie Jackson, a Quandre Diggs, or a
I was
Justin
actually about
Simmons.
I was actually
But
about to suggest Quandre Diggs.
you have, I think, a very loaded safety room as is, and
hmm
with Damar
For sure.
Hamlin making plays, I wouldn't really mess with that unless you get to the season
Eh.
and Bishop isn't ready to play yet, and Rapp is really struggling. Edwards doesn't look good. Like, you could always make a move because I expect one or two of these guys to still be unsigned come. Obviously, there'll be injuries and there will probably be some adjustments by camp, but if we're still in May and a lot of these safeties are still unsigned, I think it's reasonable to expect you get to September, October, there's going to be one or two guys still available. So I
Mhm.
would kind of leave it as is on the safety front, but I'm interested in hearing your impact.
You know, the way kind of like how you were taking your take here with this is kind of feels like, wait it out. Because even an interesting note here is the trade deadline's a week later. It's the Tuesday
That's
after
true.
week 9 instead of the Tuesday
Maybe
after
you
week
just
8.
sit on
Mhm.
all of your cap until the season and injuries happen or whatnot, and you just kind of wait. That wouldn't be a bad approach either. That's a good point.
Mhm.
So
Indeed.
that could be it, but, I've put down a couple of names that,
Sure, I'm
if the
interested in
Bills
hearing them.
would be interested in, and maybe getting. You know, Adoree Jackson, we said it right off the hop. I mean, Steven
Oh,
Nelson,
yeah.
Perfect.
another guy, I think, you could probably sign Steven Nelson now and he'd be really good, a really good solid depth piece, be that
Sure.
Eh,
DB3. But if you
eh.
want to get crazy,
Uh-oh.
Debo Samuel is out there. And I
You
think
mean you
Uh,
you mean a trade for Debo Samuel? No, thank
you're
you.
gonna get a
If you're
trade
gonna
for
I'm
trade
with
Debo Samuel.
Connor.
if you're gonna trade for a wide receiver from the San Francisco 49ers, you're trading for Brandon Ayuk. I am
Right, I
not
mean, I wouldn't be
I would
opposed to that
not
either, but
I would not want Debo
he's
Samuel
not
on the
in a
Bills.
he's in a free agent year. You're getting Debo Samuel
N
for 2 years instead of 1, and you don't
Neither
have
of them
to
are.
and you're avoiding the long-term contract, and I love Brandon Ayuk.
Listen.
If the Bills decided to trade for Brandon Ayuk, I'd be through the roof. I mean, you're getting a 26-year-old young wide receiver you can lock up long term on this team. I'll be through the roof for
Exactly.
it. But if you wanted,
Mhm.
maybe the veteran approach, you do like a Debo Samuel. A guy like uh
Debo is
Brown.
27, though. That's the only
Mhm.
thing you trade for him. He's going to be
Yep.
28 in the season, and then next year is 29, and then you basically
Mhm.
have Diggs all over again. And yes, you
Yep.
might get 2 good years, but he's not even the level of receiver that Diggs is. So I don't know. To me, I think Curtis can give you some of the stuff
Mhm.
that Debo can give you already as far as
Mhm.
gadget
Mhm.
plays after
Absolutely.
catch. And I think that even Keon can do some of the stuff too after the catch and over the middle
Oh,
of the
absolutely.
field. So, I mean, I don't think this Bills receiver position is as bad as people are making it
Oh,
out to
no.
be.
Oh,
It's
I
I
not.
think
agree.
I think Shakir on a lot of teams at worst is their wide receiver 3. Like on the Chiefs, he's
Mhm.
potentially the wide receiver 2 right now, especially with Rice, situation up in the air. Um, I mean, Cincinnati, I would say, he would be ahead of a rookie, third round pick in Jermaine Burton. I mean, Baltimore, who's Baltimore's third round receiver? I mean, if you look at all these,
Mhm.
even Miami fans are delusional, so they're going to tell everyone they got 3
Uh-huh.
wide receiver ones. But if Chris Greer had his options available and there was no cap and he could either choose Khalil Shakir as that slot receiver to go with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle with Shakir's after the catch ability and his 4.4, his low 4.4 speed, you don't think that Chris Greer is taking Khalil Shakir over an older OBJ?
Oh, he
You know
for
what's
sure
the
is
you know what the
taking a Khalil
you know what
Shakir.
ooh, when it comes to I feel like that is a decision that Greer is
And
going
hear me
to
out.
that's a decision that Greer is going to delegate to, Mike McDaniel and staff, because if you want my true opinion, I don't really think I'd want Chris Greer up to that decision because I
I
still
might
feel like he's taking
and
OBJ.
and while the stove is still hot tonight, especially we talk about the Patriots and whatnot, I think that Keon can be a better version of T. Higgins because he brings you more after the catch and he's more athletic than T. Higgins, even though he had a slightly slower 40 time.
Mhm. No.
He is a better vertical. He's stronger. I think he's a little taller too, or they're about the same
Mhm.
height. But that that Allen to Keon connection will be better than Burrow
Mhm.
to T. Higgins. Mark my word
That's
when it's all said and done.
to be honest, I want to agree
Ben
with
is
that, but
just
I also
completely
want
saying,
to,
"Let's end all wide receiver talks. This is going to be
mhm.
the best wide receiver room right
Yes,
now the Bills
and
have
I
had."
wanna I
I
wanna make
think it
sure
is
we're
actually one of the better ones overall outside
Mhm.
of the wide receiver 1. But I think Curtis Samuel, I actually think in 2024, this version of Curtis Samuel is not that far off than 2024
Mhm.
Stephon Diggs. Obviously, he's not 2020 Stephon Diggs, and he's not going to give you he's not going to give you 1,500 receiving yards at 110 catches. But what he could give you is similar production to what Stephon Diggs is going to give Houston this year. I get it. Diggs is going to be their
Next
wide
to
receiver
nothing.
3, right? No, but I think both players should be around the 900 yards, 70-ish, 80-ish catches mark. And I just think how the offenses are built, I think
Hmm.
for what Brady wanted to do, I think Samuel gives them more explosiveness, obviously, and more dynamic play overall than Diggs, because Diggs, he lost, as you saw last year, he lost his vertical ability on certain plays. So, the connection deep wasn't there. Yes, Samuel's a little undersized. I think we have other guys who are actually going to be the main deep threats anyways, because we all know that Gabe Davis was our main deep threat. I believe um, and I
You got a
believe
cat got your tongue there, Ben?
no, sorry, I was typing, but I believe that ultimately Shakir will actually be um, the main replacement for Gabe Davis when it's all said and done. Plus a combination of MVS too to some of the deep stuff, but I think the underneath stuff and the after the catch stuff are really gonna be the bread and butter to this offense. Whether it's Kincaid, Cook,
Mm-hmm.
um, Samuel or Coleman. I think they're all kind of just going to be chess pieces to be moved around and utilized in various ways. I think, like I said earlier, you're going to get Shakir and MVS deep. I mean, obviously, I think Samuel and Coleman still can be used as deep threats, but I think the other guys are going to, clear it out to open it up to get the ball into Kincaid, Cook, Coleman, or Samuel's hands in space. Because if you look at the Bills' offense the last 3-4 years under McDermott, they've been one of the lower teams ranked for total yards after catch. And the
Mm-hmm.
Bengals and Chiefs are routinely in
Mhm.
the top 5, top 10. So one of the big emphasis from being in McDermott in the offseason was to add yards after catch. And I think that's going to be a big element to this offense going forward. And that's how the wide receiver room, yes, it's not sexy in some ways, but it's constituted to guys with different roles who can do different things. And let's add more fuel to the fire. What if Chase Claypool is 70% of what he was with Big Ben? Then you have another big red zone target who can be a big play guy. Like, if Chase Claypool makes the team, he could be this team's secret deep threat because he can take a top off a defense too. He's got some speed and he's got some size. It really, to me, I think he still has the talent and the skill. It to me with Claypool, it comes
Ugh.
down to his attitude and mentality
Mhm. Yep.
overall. So I
Yeah.
think if he chooses to really buy in, which it sounds like he is so far. I mean,
Mhm.
obviously, he's going to have to battle with some guys because it sounds like even Justin
He
Shorter
better.
is making a push for the roster. But
Good.
if Chase Claypool makes a roster, he can make an impact too, as disgusting as that may
Mhm.
sound.
No, here's the thing, Ben. I want to kind of give a caveat to what you just said because I actually believe, and this is from experience, watching Chase Claypool that I have more of than I care to admit. Both of y'all know. Um, the thing that is notable, and the thing to your point, Ben, is that yes, you kind of want Claypool's attitude to have an adjustment to where he is more of a team player and he's kind of getting back to a little bit of where he was in 2020. The caveat is that from 2020, you don't want him to get into too much of that 2020 persona that he had. The 2020 persona was a very
Right. You want the
unbelievably
on-field
cocky player.
2020. You want
Yes.
the on-field, not the off-field.
You do not want that on-field Chase Claypool or off-field Chase Claypool in 2020. That losing never heard of her tweet aged horribly when the Steelers lost to Washington that year, and then after that when they lost to the Ryan Finley led Bengals, that tweet kept getting worse and worse and worse and worse. So at the end of the day, you want Chase Claypool to be the player that he was in 2020 on the field, but you want him to have a newfound attitude and a newfound sense of teamwork with the Bills and with arguably the best quarterback he has ever played with in his career in Josh Allen. I
Yep.
definitely say this current Josh Allen is much, much better than, the
Any
or
variation of
the old.
Big Ben,
I
Justin
would not
Fields, or
say
Tua he's played with.
I
See,
would
here's the thing.
I would
Here's the
not
thing.
say any variation of Ben. Ben in his prime is one of the best quarterbacks I've
No,
ever
I
seen play in
said
my life.
you missed what I said. Any
Oh.
variation of Ben he's played with.
Oh, okay, yeah, well, the ones he's played with have all been, past
But
their
I'll give
past
you
the
a
prime
hot
Ben.
take.
Oh
Prime
boy.
Josh Allen is still better than prime Big Ben.
Okay, well, I would have to,
Numbers
it's a debate.
do it's close. If you look at the numbers, Josh
No,
Allen's best years are actually, I think, better than Big Ben's. Then
oh,
you have to
yeah.
factor in the rushing yards. So I'll just kind of put a bow on Chase Claypool. I think he should know this is his final real opportunity in the
Mhm,
NFL, so
Hmm.
he kind
yep,
of has to be on his best behavior. But I
mhm,
guess whether he does or not, I guess is still to be seen. Um, but Paul, any final notes or takes on the roster, Chase Claypool, anything?
mhm.
The Indy
The
500.
Bills are
Hey,
What do you
constructing
think of the pit lanes?
yeah, don't even, Ben. I will reach through this screen right now if you bring that
the
up one
Bills
more time.
the Bills are building a Kansas City like offense,
Mhm.
but it's going to be better.
Yes.
Like what they're doing in KC is kind of similar with Kincaid and everyone else, but it's going to be better because they have Josh Allen, they have people that can separate,
Mhm,
and they have Joe Brady calling the plays. And I think it's going to be more free flowing offense. And then
mhm.
the Chiefs. I think it's going to be the Chiefs offense, but take it better.
Okay, yes. And I promised everybody a spicy hot take before we ended the show. So I thought about it earlier while we were talking about wide receivers, which one more last thing about wide receivers in terms of wide receiver free agents. You know who I just realized is actually still a free agent in this wide receiver room? Michael Thomas. Could you imagine? Michael Thomas, when he was with the Saints, was really, really, really good. If he could tap into that again, oh my God. But anyway, I mean, not going to happen, but just an idea.
I mean, we
But
do have several New Orleans connections in the
this is
coaching staff, but
yeah,
that
you're
could be
not wrong.
another topic
Ab-
for next day.
Absolutely. So, what I want to bring up is I thought about this and I'm noticing a little bit of a trend, right? Y'all remember how it ended with Stephon Diggs, how he got out of Buffalo in the way that he did, and how he kind of burned every bridge on the way out. You know what it really reminds me of? And this might, if the people that are watching the show that have watched football for a very long time, like I have, they'll know exactly where I'm going with this. But this is the exact trajectory that Antonio Brown took when he left Pittsburgh. If you want a really bold prediction of mine, I predict that because Stephon Diggs is going to a team in Houston where he will not be the guy because they just paid Nico Collins, they have Tank Dell, and they have so many more weapons than just Stephon Diggs. I bet you Stephon Diggs gets upset, leaves, goes to a team like the Kansas City Chiefs just to spite the Bills and flames out. And then you never hear from him again after that. That's my bold prediction and my hot take for the evening. If Stephon
Okay.
Diggs signs with the Chiefs next season, come back to this and tell me exactly how much you think I'm a soothsayer or whatever you want to call it. But I also believe, unless Ben or Paul have any final thoughts, anything, anything,
Nope.
no, Ben,
Nope,
are you sure about that? You're going to think of
I'm
something
sure.
after the show. All righty. Well, then in that case, that will go ahead and conclude tonight's episode of the show. Thank you to everybody that stuck around to hear us talk and hear us ramble. We definitely had some very, very fun takes tonight. Definitely had some good discussion on that. Make sure you guys are following us on Twitter and following us on YouTube. Stay tuned. We do have I have some interesting plans for future content. And if you guys want to hear me punch a hole in a wall on my racing channel, go follow at that Florida guy on Twitter and YouTube, because I'm releasing my Indianapolis 500 reactions and final thoughts on the race and looking forward. And yeah, Ben, if you want to bring up that stupid road speeding BS again, you just go over there and do it. But I believe that will conclude the show for the evening. So yeah, again, thank you guys for watching, and go Bills.
Go Bills.
Go Bills. Big dubs.